Welcome to A Mason's Work, the podcast where we review Masonic symbols and illustrate how they can be used to solve problems in everyday life. With your host, Brian Mattox, a proud member of the Craftsman Online Media Network.
So an obvious question based on the last couple of episodes, one, that everything's happening in your mind, and two, that you predominantly interact with people's ideas of who they are as opposed to their actual selves, leads us to the obvious question, I suppose, which might be, how can we then help others? When it comes to helping someone who's in genuine distress, what does that mean? What does it look like? And how can we do it given some of those sort of conceptual constraints that we've talked about? The first things first, if you haven't listened to the episode about you interacting with other people, how you typically interact with the idea of that person as opposed to the person themselves, you want to go back and revisit that as a kind of concept piece for how we might then go to help other people. The first thing you can do to help other people is as much as possible, you want to eliminate your idea of who they are. What that does, and we talked about this in the last episode a little bit, is enslave that person to conformity to your concepts. What it does is creates this framework that they then, kind of like a cookie cutter cutout, that they have to then kind of fit inside in order to make you comfortable. So you have to eliminate that kind of early on if you want to make any progress helping other people. When you do that, when you eliminate that sort of idea of who they are, you give them the freedom to act in any way that they want, and you don't have an emotional response to those interactions. This allows you to allow them to essentially do what it is that they're going to do. And you can observe that behavior and interact with that person at face value. Then when you look at the situation at face value, you can essentially then start to figure out how to best help. When someone is stuck, oftentimes they're stuck in the same way that you might have been stuck. They are stuck in a mental framework about the way the world operates that no longer is serving their needs. Maybe they need to do something different. Maybe they need to respond in a different way. Maybe they need to pursue their own growth. As you separate your projection onto them, their behavior will start to, in many ways, become almost obvious. You'll be able to see patterns in their behavior that indicate an underlying belief or an underlying behavior that is not serving them in some way or another. But you can't get there, again, if you are busy trying to superimpose your idea of kind of what they're doing and why onto, because you have this preconceived notion. If you don't separate that first, you're never really going to make any headway. But once you've taken your idea away and we can watch their behaviors and start to see the patterns underneath them, then you can start to really meaningfully point out opportunities that they might go and find new perspectives or new ways of thinking or ways of behaving to help them achieve their goals. For example, if you see someone who is complaining that they're having maybe a hard time with a friend or loved one, you might point them at the last episode where we talked about your problem with a friend or a loved one is probably your problem with your idea of that friend or loved one and not the loved one itself. When you start to see these things, though, you can start essentially triaging the real behavior and the real actions, and then helping them get sort of the cognitive toolkit that they're going to need to move forward. When someone's complaining, for example, that they are maybe having trouble with diet, for example, you might point them towards resources not about what's healthy and what's not healthy to eat. That seems important, but most diet problems, like I say in the episode a couple episodes ago, all of the challenges, all of the things that happen, all start in your mind. So you might point them to that conversation first as a way to start pursuing some self-development or self-improvement. So as you're going through this and as you are working to help others, again, separate your idea of who they are from who they actually are and how they behave. And then understand that most behaviors that other people have, just like you, are all the product of this sort of mental construct. And if you can identify what behaviors they have that indicate sort of what mental construct they believe that may or may not be true, then you can route them towards behaviors or sort of cognitive toolkits that they can use to help sort of get through some of those challenges or issues. With that, we'll see you next time.
The views represented in this podcast are those of the speaker alone and are not representative of any grand or subordinate lodge.
Hi, Brian here. I wanted to thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any suggestions or guidance for further episodes you'd like to see or hear, whatever the case may be, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at masonswork.com, and we will try and incorporate your suggestions into a future recording. Thanks.
Freemasonry teaches us that the true work is within, a lifelong journey of reflection, discipline, and discovery. At A Mason's Work, we help Masons bring out their best selves through meaningful self-inquiry and symbolic practice. From personal reflection to lodge engagement, we offer tools that turn symbols into action. Visit us at amasonswork.com. The work is within. The time is now.